FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Today's show is brought to you by U.S. Gold Corp. U.S. Gold Corp is a U.S.-focused gold exploration and development company advancing high-potential projects in Wyoming and Nevada. U.S. Gold Corp has consolidated a district on Nevada's productive Cortex Trend and is advancing the Copper King project towards production in Wyoming, led by a team of prolific company builders and renowned explorers, including Dave Mathewson, who is directly responsible for several major Nevada gold discoveries. U.S. Gold Corp is well-capitalized and has an extremely tight share structure with less than 20 million shares outstanding and trades on the NASDAQ, a major exchange, under the ticker symbol USAU. To learn more, go to usgoldcorp.gold. That's usgoldcorp.gold.
The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz. It's 4/29/19. April almost over. Is it time to sell in May and then go away? Well, if past is prologue, might not be a bad idea. Well, we got more important issues to talk about right now. The anti-Semitism of the modern so-called Democratic Party. Well, as always, questions or comments, just email us, kl@kerrylutz.com. With us now is Daniel Greenfield. You find him at sultankanishblogspot.com. Daniel, it's great to have you back. So what is going on with the Democratic Party? Have they blown a gasket? Because without the Jewish voters and Jewish support, that party cannot exist.
Well, the Democrats are going further and further to the left. They're becoming more radical, and that's going to display in a variety of symptoms. One of those is growing anti-Semitism, political extremes. Radical leftists tend to be anti-Semitic. They may disguise that as anti-Zionism, they may disguise that as anti-capitalism, but ultimately the bottom line there is anti-Semitism. As far as the Jewish demographic goes, Jews are a fairly small percentage of the electorate. The UK Labour Party, for example, has been easily able to shed its Jewish electorate. Obviously, the British Jewish population is smaller, but the British Labour Party under Jeremy Corbyn has gone very anti-Semitic. It's alienated all its Jewish voters, and it's attracted new people who are rather anti-Semitic, and it's doing quite well because of that. The Democrats assumed correctly, I think, that they'll be able to do the same thing. There will be a certain percentage of Jews who are anti-Semitic enough that they will actually stay with them. Historically, we've seen that happen before in the Soviet Union and other radical leftist regimes. The others will just be actually used as hate objects, which, again, is very much a necessity for radical left-wing groups because they need conspiracy theories, they need somebody to hate, and Jews serve that purpose very well.
But the thing is this, Daniel, financial support from the Jewish community, whether it's Hollywood moguls or New York hedge fund managers, okay, is a major part of the party. The other thing is that the people working to further the party, there are so many Jews in high up places, both elected and unelected, running the party, all these things. I just don't see that the party survives after it ejects the Jewish contingent.
The party can survive quite well. It's going to just become radical and ugly. The real question is whether more people are going to wake up to just how radical, unstable, and dangerous the Democrats are becoming. And the question very much there involves the media, involves control over information. The media has made it very clear that for the most part it's going to go along with whatever radical extreme the Democrats go to. And we've seen this, for example, with the New York Times cartoon. The media plays a major role in mainstreaming the bigotry and anti-Semitism of the radical left. Beyond that, the media's goal is to censor as much of the internet as they can. It's why they've created this social media emergency, which requires monitoring, it requires oversight, because if they can control the narrative, the Democrats themselves can become as radical as they want without people really realizing it. If they actually lose control over the narrative, then they're in trouble.
Yeah, well, you know, there are a lot of Jews in the media as well, so they're all just going to go along. How do you go along with a party that hates you because of your religion?
Well, the Democrats are going to hate pretty much every religion except Islam. They're certainly going to hate Judeo-Christian religions, any traditional values, any traditional insistence, because the radical left's agenda is to destroy traditional values, traditional religion, traditional morality, not just because they hate the specific values, but because when you actually want to transform a country, when you want to transform a society, you have to destroy whatever values came beforehand. Just like joining a cult, the first thing the cult does is deconstruct your identity. Radical movements, leftist movements, deconstruct the existing national identity. So they have to go after Judeo-Christian values, they have to go after Jews, they have to go after Christians, and that's exactly what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Well, it doesn't sound like a recipe for long-term success to me, but what do I know? And hey, looking at the presidential field here, one of them is more crazier than the next, right? I mean, what is going on? And it looks like they're getting ready to screw Bernie again, which sounds like a potentially dangerous move there.
The party largely now consists of candidates who are going further and further to the left and competing with each other for extremes. You have the majority of 2020 viable candidates have endorsed the Green New Deal. They've endorsed slavery reparations. At least they've endorsed them in principle. There's really few things that they won't endorse, few things on the radical fringe that they won't get behind. And thus, for example, the ACLU began pushing the idea of prisoners voting from prison, and Bernie Sanders jumped on it and said, sure, that's a great idea. We should have the Boston bomber and serial rapists and killers voting in prison and pedophiles. And this is really a process where ideas that you didn't have, that were not mainstream, that no politician would have seriously endorsed a year ago, is now suddenly practically a Democrat platform. So this is just what happens when a party goes off the cliff, when it goes further and further to the radical fringe, and there's no stopping point. There's no speed bumps there.
Yeah, there's they used to have to balance all their interests: labor, minorities, blacks, Hispanics. Now they just don't seem to have any, like you said, there's no governor there. There's nothing to keep them controlled, and no idea is too fringe and too radical and too insane for them.
And as a result, this is really going to be an election that's a litmus test on whether the voters are going to punish fringe politics or whether they're actually going to reward them. In 2018, the left was very much rewarded. We now have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Representative Omar, Representative Tlaib, and some others as major Democrat Party figures, to the extent that actually Nancy Pelosi is getting worried. So this is going to be very much the acid test. This is a presidential election. There's going to be major turnout. It's not going to be a fringe situation the way it was in 2018, where you could just turn out groups that wouldn't normally turn out. So this is going to really determine whether the Democrat Party is completely going to go off the track, and it's going to determine whether the country is going to go off the track.
Yeah, can a guy like Bernie or Biden win?
Well, Biden still is likely going to be his party's nominee. That said, they're going to be doing everything possible to stop him. Bernie Sanders does have a shot. It's a bizarre situation, but yes, you've got a guy who was actually on record calling for nationalizing banks and utilities. Actual socialism was calling for a 100% tax of anybody who makes over $1 million. Again, general socialist ideas actually being in a position to become the president of the United States. This was the first time in over a century where we could actually had the prospect of an open socialist becoming president of the United States.
Yeah, he sounds like he's a bit to the left of former communist presidential candidate Gus Hall. So I don't know. Like you do see there are some people that buy into this stuff, but what's going to be the upshot here? Is America ready to take this step?
Most people, I don't think, have actually thought about it. Most people are just moving along with where powerful, influential movements push them. And those movements are funded by billionaires, guys like George Soros, and many others that are less well-known in conservative circles. And these people have manipulated our politics. It's not the Russians. It's guys like that who have actually financed radical groups, and they've had a huge impact. Campaign finance reform very much tilted the playing field in their favor. And most people are just not aware of this. They're not paying attention. They don't understand the consequences of it. They see politics becoming more radical, but they don't understand where it's coming from. And again, the 2016 was very much an acid test for is there going to be pushback? And with Trump's victory, there was pushback. 2020 is really going to determine whether we're going to go down one track or the other track. The first track is the track of actually turning back the tide. The second track is the one where we go full blast towards socialism.
Mm-hmm. Well, so this is going to be a pivotal election. I kind of said from the beginning, I think it's Trump's to lose because I just can't see the country electing Bernie, if nothing else, because the guy is going to be 79 years old, I think. And then Biden is 76. Now, granted, Trump, I think, is 72, but he has got the energy. Nobody can say that this guy physically isn't up to the job. I mean, Bernie Sanders reminds me of Death of a Salesman, Willie Loman. He is the Willie Loman of politics. And Willie Lomans don't just all of a sudden become winners, Daniel.
Yeah, it's a ridiculous situation, and the Willie Loman example is dead right. And when you actually listen to Bernie Sanders, he goes right back and forth from the same few talking points. He has no ability to answer questions that are outside his talking points, and he frequently gets his own talking points wrong. He's a fumbling mess. And yet they've built this kind of cult of personality for him. If you go back to 2016, where did the whole Bernie campaign come from? It came from some Obama people who weren't on board with the Hillary campaign because she wasn't paying them. They originally tried to set up a draft Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren did not want to take on Hillary Clinton. Bernie Sanders had nothing to lose. He jumped in. They built him a cult of personality. And now we actually have this bizarre situation where a guy who was completely incoherent, who can't meaningfully explain his own policies, who doesn't have his own numbers in place, is actually in a position to become president of the United States.
Yeah, well, but the Democratic Party never liked this guy, and they're going to screw him over this time, just like they did last. I mean, you could see it lining up. But Elizabeth Warren, she's basically unelectable. Trump pretty much destroyed her. The other also rans in the party. Do you think it's possible another candidate is going to come to the fore and rescue and unify the Democratic Party?
One of the reasons that Biden isn't doing as well as one of the reasons that Biden is actually doing pretty well and that Bernie Sanders is doing pretty well is that most Democrats just see this huge, messy field with a whole bunch of candidates, and it basically looks like a clown car of people, and none of them really properly stand out. If another candidate emerges, somebody who could actually have that kind of name recognition, the popular presence, it could be a game changer. I know people keep talking about Michelle Obama. I'm skeptical about the rumors in part because it doesn't seem like Michelle Obama has at any point really wanted to get into electoral politics. Obviously she's been a somewhat obnoxious president. She's played a very traditional first lady part. She hasn't been doing the Hillary Clinton thing where she actually wanted control over major policy, where she had her husband running anything by her. So again, I don't think it's something she would want, but I think that a whole bunch of Democrats may start pushing for it, and Obama may actually want to get back in the White House through his wife. So it's not something that can be ruled out entirely, but I don't think it's the likeliest scenario.
I think she hated being first lady, and the furthest thing from her mind is to become president. There was that interchange that was captured between her and the French first lady. I can't remember her name at this point. She had been a former supermodel, and she said she absolutely despised being being first lady. She hated every minute of it. So, I mean, there were sometimes you could see she was happy. She loved the vacations. She loved the $500,000 a week music budget to bring in all of her homies and everything. But outside of that, I don't think she was really enamored of the office.
Yeah, I think that's correct. She showed no particular appreciation, no liking for it. I don't think she wants to go back. That doesn't mean that it is completely impossible, but even actually bringing another candidate into the race, even one with a huge list, with a lot of backing, would be challenging. And Michelle Obama does not really have her husband's presence. She's not all that good on the campaign trail. It wouldn't be completely impossible, but it was a kind of desperate move to stop Bernie Sanders. It really isn't necessary because unless Biden completely implodes, he's got the inside track.
Which he might. He's imploded before. He'll be imploding again. I wouldn't count that out. So what other last-minute mystery savior candidates do they have? Hillary Clinton? I don't think they want her coming back. So
they'd actually set up an assassination of her to prevent her from coming back.
Well, that's a little extreme.
She still has a small, narrow fan base, but that would be a complete, utter disaster. And it's actually amusing to read the fact that Obama actually dissuaded Biden from running in 2016 because he thought Hillary Clinton had the best shot. So much for his political instinct.
I saw that. Well, I always said that the only person that Hillary could lose to was Trump, and the only person who could beat Hillary was Trump. So the only person who could lose to Trump was Hillary, and the only person who could beat Hillary was Trump. So that certainly worked out. Well, I guess we're just going to have to see. One thing I'm pretty sure about, it's not going to be Pete Buttplug. It's not going to be Hickenlooper. It's not going to be Kamala Harris. It's not going to be Cory Booker and any of the other candidates. We're kind of stuck with the top two, aren't we? Beto, I think Beto is flavor of the week is gone. So there's really nobody else here unless somebody jumps in.
A bunch of these candidates are actually running to become vice president, or at least build their profile. I think more of them will probably end up as a vice presidential nominee. Obama went somewhat out of the box. Trump went somewhat out of the box with a VP pick. I'm pretty sure whoever the winner is, unless it's Bernie Sanders, is going to pick somebody from that list, and they're going to be young and preferably a minority of some kind. I wouldn't completely rule out the possibility of Kamala Harris rising higher, or rule out the possibility of Pete Buttigieg going higher. That said, they do have a bit of a ceiling, and once they actually start going through some of the primaries, they're going to drop pretty quickly. And there are other candidates who just have a certain amount of money but have absolutely no shell whatsoever. People like Kirsten Gillibrand, whose race continues to be completely baffling. Cory Booker has been trying very, very hard, but he just imploded from the first day when he came into the Senate with this bizarre schizophrenic display. One day he's on top, the next day he's angry and outraged. It's been ridiculous that it has not connected with voters.
Agreed. And
some of the more conservative alternatives are also a dead end. And the single issue candidates, guys like Hickenlooper, Inslee, again, I don't think Democrats want a single issue candidate. When you look at the actual polls, they don't even want a woman. They don't want a minority. They want somebody who can beat Trump. They've had it knocked into their heads that Trump is Hitler, Trump is the devil. All they care about is stopping Trump.
Yeah.
So in some cases, it's not even the policy stuff. The media cares about policy. For a huge number of Democrats, the majority, they have polled us saying they don't care if it's a minority, they don't care if it's a woman, they don't care if it's a gay man, just somebody who can beat Trump. And I think that's why Biden is in the lead.
Yeah, hey, well, any port in a storm, I guess. Well, we're just going to have to see what happens here. I think that Biden will implode, and Bernie is always imploding, but it seems to make no difference to his base. Anyway, we're just going to have to see, but it's a lot of losers in that field. You know, Biden's already a two-time loser. Bernie's lost once, and the rest of them, you know, are future losers. Anyways, so best place to find your work these days?
Well, I'm a showman journalism fellow with David Harwood's Freedom Center, so Front Page Magazine is the best place.
frontpagemag.com, must reading. Hey, any questions or comments? Email us, kl@kerrylutz.com, Twitter feed @KerryLutz, Facebook page, Financial Survival Network. Daniel, it's always a pleasure to have you on. Talk to you soon.
Thank you so much for having me.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.